Welcome back to the Sunday Suitcase, the podcast where we unpack the tools legal professionals need to thrive, one Sunday at a time. I'm your host, Alex, and today we're going to talk about something that touches so many of us. It's burnout. More importantly, we're going to be talking about how to build your very own burnout prevention plan and team, and how this plan and the team can help you regain balance in your life. If you saw my recent LinkedIn post about burnout prevention teams, you know this isn't something that unfortunately just not many, if any, companies offer. So I figured, why not start then by creating your own plan and team? By the end of the episode, hopefully, you'll have a simple, actionable plan to help you address burnout, as well as a supportive team to help you along the way. So if you haven't had a chance, grab the form I included in the post and let's dive in. So actually, before we dive into the form, I want to talk a little bit about why we need a burnout prevention plan and a team as well. So burnout happens when we're overwhelmed, emotionally drained, and just unable to meet the constant demands that are placed on us. And it's not really just about working too hard. It can come from other responsibilities outside of work, or maybe a lack of support, or just even internal pressures that we set on ourselves when we don't set proper boundaries. Now, a burnout prevention plan and a team isn't just about leaning on people, it's really about creating a safety net for yourself. It's about saying, I can't do this alone, and that's okay. And it's about learning how to ask for help when you need it. And hopefully this form is going to be your guide to identifying what's causing your burnout, assessing what you can't control, and then identifying and building that team of people who can help you through it. So now let's dive into the form step by step. First section is understanding burnout. This is where you really need to be honest with yourself. And the first question is going to ask you, what are the primary causes of your burnout? Is it work overload? Are you feeling undervalued? Maybe it's outside personal obligations that don't leave you any time for yourself. Don't overthink it. Just write down what comes to your mind. And then describe the specific situations or the patterns that make you feel burned out. Maybe it's constant emails that pile up after you leave work, or maybe skipping meals, or maybe skipping your workouts. Be as specific as possible because that's really going to help you later on. And then finally, ask yourself, are these triggers temporary? Are they recurring? Are they ongoing? This question is going to help you figure out if you're dealing with something that's, that might pass. And, it's a short-term stressor, basically. Or if it's something that you're going to need to have a long-term strategy for. Section 2 of the form, this is where you start assessing the things that you can control. So once you've identified what those burnout triggers are, your next step is going to be to ask yourself, do I have control over these triggers? And I feel like this question is very powerful because it's going to shift your focus to the things that you can change. Now, if your answer is no, obviously, I don't want you to stop there. I want you to still write down what's preventing you then from addressing the issues. Is it lack of resources, time, support? The section really should be about understanding the barriers so that you can find ways to overcome them. And if you've already taken the steps to manage the triggers, then write that down too. I mean, you got to celebrate everything. So that's part of the process. Section 3 is where we get down to building your team. And here's to me what the heart of the form is this team building piece of it. So start by asking yourself, who can I rely for support? And think of all the people in your life that can be there for you in different ways. It can be a neighbor, a friend, family member, maybe a coworker, maybe a manager, a mentor, therapist, your personal trainer, your physical therapist, long list of people that you can include in your team. So again, don't forget about your colleagues, because these are the folks who also, if this is a work related trigger, they're the ones who really understand your work environment, and they can really be good resources for you. So once you identified who those potential team members are, then ask yourself, what kind of support do I need from them? And obviously, this is going to be different. The type of support that you need from a family member is going to be very different than the type of support you need from a colleague. Like, for example, for me, some of the people that I would consider to be part of my burnout prevention team would include people like my physical therapist, who makes sure that my shoulders stay in place and the neck pain goes away. But also, I consider my boy's occupational therapist to be part of that support team, because she works with our boys to help them develop life skills, since they both have special needs. And that's something that my husband and I also work out at home, but it's just not the same. So again, think about the people in your life and the different types of support that you're going to need from them. It could be something as simple as just needing someone to listen when you need to vent. I know that I have been there. Or perhaps you need to delegate a task or set boundaries. But yeah, really take some time to think about the type of support these people can provide. And again, just personal experience, the type of support that I would sometimes ask from family members wouldn't necessarily be just to vent, or for them to tell me, you got this, you're strong. No, sometimes I need help. Sometimes I'm actually asking you to come and tell me, you know what, you got a lot on your plate. Let me take that from you so that you can spend some time resting. So this is, again, the part of the form where I feel like you want to spend some time really thinking about your circle and the type of support that they will be able to provide. So don't skip that. Also, how are you planning on communicating your needs and your boundaries to that team? Because clarity is key here. You don't want to be vague, and I speak again from experience. When my boys were born, they were both premature, and they required a lot of just medical interventions, and I personally sucked at asking for help. I felt like it was my job as their mother to drive them to every doctor's appointment, every therapy appointment, any home-based services. I felt like it was my job to do it all. And I didn't know, and I didn't feel comfortable sometimes even asking for help when it came to even my family members. So this is, again, another important piece of the form is knowing how to communicate your needs. You have to be clear. I was not clear when I needed help. I honestly, till this day, don't know how I survived, or my husband, because the burnout back then, when we were trying to deal with oxygen tanks and heart monitors and ABA therapies and all sorts of other things happening, we were not good about asking for help. And we definitely weren't clear with what we needed. So again, clarity is key here. The next section is identifying who those team members are. So this is where you're going to get specific about writing down the names of the people that you would like to have on your burnout prevention team. So, right next to the name, you can include what their role or their relationship is to you and the type of support that you would want them to provide, whether it's emotional, check ins, little things like that. So, take your time here too. And remember, the team doesn't have to be big. You don't need 50 people in your team unless you have that many, and that's fantastic. It could be 3 or 4. It just needs to be filled with people you trust. In the last section of the form, this is where you're going to turn your ideas into action. So the form asks, what small steps can you take today to address burnout? And maybe it's, if it's a work related thing, you can schedule some time with your boss to discuss your workload. Or maybe it's just texting a friend and asking for help, asking for support. For some of us, it's workouts. Like, you know what, starting with, sticking to my workouts and making sure that I'm eating right or that I'm getting enough sleep. So make sure that you start writing out the smallest steps you can take to start today. Then you're going to write down how you're going to keep communicating with your team. Maybe you set up weekly check-ins, or you create a shared calendar, or maybe you schedule calls. Just anything to make sure that you also hold yourself accountable. Last but not least, ask yourself, how are you going to evaluate the effectiveness of your plan and your team? Maybe you notice a reduction in stress. Maybe you're being more productive. Maybe you feel lighter. Maybe you sleep better. For me, it would be I don't grind my teeth as much, so therefore I don't wake up with a horrible headache from clenching my jaw overnight. Anything that you can basically measure, those are going to be your markers. So make sure you write them down. So that's the end of the form. I hope that you found it useful. I think it's simple, but it's powerful because it really turns something overwhelming into small, manageable steps. Also, remember that burnout isn't really a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you need more support. And building this type of prevention plan and team is a way to remind yourself that you're not the only person going through this. And who knows, you might end up on somebody else's burnout prevention team. If you want a copy of the form, again, it's in the links with the post. So check that out. Take your time. Don't be afraid to, again, reach out to people when you need help, when you want help. Thank you for joining me on this episode. I hope you found it helpful. And I will chat with you all next week.